Hi everybody, I'm Michael Kilmister and I'm with the University of Newcastle Central Coast campus, and today I'm here to talk about research skills for the Model of the United Nations Assembly and how those skills can help you prepare to represent your nation. We will particularly be talking about where to find information, inclusive of what are some good starting points, and how to assess the information once you find it, which is really important to find reliable sources, particularly today with the fake news controversy that's in the news quite a bit. So research is formalised curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose, and your purpose, first of all, is your country, your country's background. You need to accurately represent your country's viewpoint, just as the delegates for the nations would at the General Assembly of the United Nations. So some of the information you should be mindful of researching is history, the culture, the geopolitical alignments, the main factors of the economy, and the demographics of the nation. And some useful websites, which I'll bring up on screen right now, are Europa World, the BBC Country Profiles, the World Bank Country Profiles, and the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. And these will all give you that information. And it's important to use websites that are reliable, so government or organizational URLs, rather than a .com, which could offer some information that isn't up to date. The resolutions too are just fantastic starting points for keywords in your search, whether it's via Google or your local libraries, databases, and school libraries as well. So keywords are phrases or words of significance that will be contained within the resolutions. And usually the topic of the resolution, so sustainable tourism would be a useful keyword, and those words might also have synonyms. So that is like words that are useful to be aware of, because not every article out there is going to refer to, say, sustainable tourism. So consider other alternatives like ecotourism or conservation tourism if sustainable tourism is your resolution. And the resolutions document on the Central Coast MUNA website has lots of useful links as well to start your research. Your research, your information can come from various sources. Probably the best starting point really is you're checking with your school librarian or your local librarian and asking them where is the best information to find on the, say, sustainable tourism or on your country. They will be able to guide you. They are experts in finding out information. There's also the University of Newcastle Central Coast Campus Library at Arimba. That is open to the public, but you will have to pay a fee to be a community member. As well, there's the Central Coast Council library system, and there are databases through there, so online resources to scholarly articles. So that means articles that have been peer-reviewed, which is looked at by people who really know what they're talking about, experts in the field. And as well, there is, of course, the internet, which I'll talk a little bit more about, inclusive of those websites I mentioned earlier. So the local library database is a searchable online collection of resources, and a lot of those resources will either be paid for by your school library or the local library, or they will be free sources that are brought together by the librarians. And they will usually require a membership, but that is often free. So it's just a matter of signing up either online or in person in the case of your local library. And there's also the State Library of New South Wales at Sydney, and they have a very extensive collection of resources. And certainly those databases can provide you with many interesting types of resources such as legislation, newspapers, encyclopedias, and including multimedia. Websites help you define the topic, particularly if you're unfamiliar with those terms in the resolutions. And they might provide extra information as well. And again, just like the databases that are available at your library, different types of media may also be accessible through websites. Some useful websites are the United Nations website. The voting records for countries in the UN General Assembly, really important, because you will have to vote like your country votes. You'll have to debate like your country debates. So what better resource to look at to see how your country reacts to those issues that are debated at the United Nations. The United Nations Research Guide, the CIA, Central Intelligence World Factbook. That's a source that's regularly updated by the American government and all the nations of the world. And the New Internationalist magazine is a magazine interested in global affairs and diplomacy. So it for current topics, and you will be debating current topics at the Model United Nations Assembly, that could be a useful resource. And as well, the MUNA website, ccmuna.com. Don't overlook it. Your websites, if you want to venture on the internet and find some more information, it's useful to be aware of the domains. So .edu domains, and I'll bring this up on the screen. .edu domains are useful. They're reliable sources, as they're from educational institutions like the University of Newcastle. .gov domains, they're government websites. And for many of your countries, I say most will have a government website, but not always will they be in English. So be mindful if you're what country you're representing and whether you'll be able to access their .gov websites. As well, there's organisational websites, and the United Nations has a .org website address, and they're reliable sources as well. The ones that can be less reliable are .com and .net, and any variations of them. They can be corporately owned, so a commercial website that's operated for profit, or they could be pushing a particular agenda. So please be careful of using them. Google is, of course, probably your default internet search database, and it's useful for searching for institutional documents from governments or other organisations. As well, a handy tip, and I'll switch screens again, a handy tip is to type site:/gov into the Google search box when looking for government websites, as that will search just government websites, which can be useful. And you could do that for other, say, .org as well, and .edu. Google Scholar is really useful as well. It offers access to articles that might not be indexed elsewhere, so that is stored elsewhere, and it searches a wide range of databases, including books, like Google Books. So it's useful for finding obscure references, basically, obscure sources of information. However, a lot of it has to be paid for, unfortunately. So it's probably better to speak to your school or local librarian and find out what databases they have on offer, rather than going to Google Scholar. Evaluating information. So we found the information through the websites, whether they're .gov or they're the organisational websites from the United Nations. There is also a matter of, even from reliable websites, some of the information can be dated. So we need a tool, a systematic way of finding out whether that information is accurate and whether it's the best information that you can use to inform the debate at MUNA. And one of the ways to go about this is a tool called TRAP, which is timeliness, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So this is evaluating the sources that you find. It's evaluating the information. So timeliness is all about, is the information current? When was it last updated? And this is particularly important for web resources. Relevance, is it closely relevant to your topic, or is it a bit off centre? So it's a matter of being careful to review the resolutions, review your country's stance against the information that you've found, and whether it is the best you can have, the most relevant. And also authority. Is it something that's authoritative? Does it? What are the people's qualifications who are writing this? In the case of a government website, or the United Nations website, or the CIA World Factbook, absolutely authoritative. But be mindful of this fake news that's out there. So things on Facebook or social media websites could be pushing a particular agenda, and you need to be wary that who is writing this stuff is not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, so to speak. And this is the same for accuracy. So does this information, does it have its own reference list? And that is the sources it's used to be written, that the authors have used to write that piece. Have you checked those sources? Are they reliable sources in and of themselves? And also the purpose. Why was this article written? Is it for general information? Is it to inform the debate? Is it to persuade the reader? This is all important when looking for agendas. Once you've found your resources and you've assessed them, it's really important to read the most general source first to give you the background. So if you've found information on countries, you have the country you're representing, then it's good to read that first, and then move into your more specific resolutions related readings to inform your purpose. So you'll know the background, and then you can use that background to take the bits and pieces you really need from the information you've found. And while reading, it's important to make notes as well in your own words. I advise against having a pre-prepared response for MUNA to the resolutions, because in a debate, it's great to be working off the cuff, to be working off some rough notes, so you can also respond to the other nations and their points of view. So write good notes from those sources. Don't write pre-prepared responses. So to recap, we need to first find information on the country being represented. Secondly, need to research the resolutions, grabbing those keywords from the resolutions and throwing them into databases at your school library, your local library, and Google. And then once that's done, use the TRAP method to research and assess those resources to see whether they are reliable. And finally, make notes from your reading. Reading from the most general source to the most specific source as it relates to the resolution, and have a good set of notes to take in on the day. Don't forget to check the ccmuna.com website for regular updates on resources that will be used